So folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we're so excited and so honored to have Henry Diltz here with us as part of this opening event. I've been spending so much time with Henry's photos, and I keep telling him that in these kind of heavy, discouraging times right now, they've been so uplifting because all the love and the friendship and just the zen of Henry in each and every shot. So what we did was we recorded a walking tour with Henry, his very first time to see everything up on the walls, and he will tell us all about each of the photos. So I'm gonna let Jerry take over from here. He's gonna share his screen and you guys are gonna get to go along on the walking tour. And then after that, Henry's gonna take some questions, and he has a few special guests that are going to join us to chat about their part in these photos. And it's gonna be pretty amazing. So Jerry, take it.
Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Dina McLeod, and I am the founding executive director of the Woody Guthrie Center. We are so excited to be welcoming you to a virtual walking tour of our new special exhibit, Roots, Rock and Rebels, the Photography of Henry Diltz. Now, most people recognize Henry's work through his photography of Laurel Canyon artists or his album art, but there's so much more. As a musician himself and a colleague and a friend, Henry was able to get photos of these artists that just express the respect that the artists in front of the lens had for the artists behind the lens. But I'm gonna let Henry tell you his stories. Enjoy. Henry Diltz.
And here's my favorite teacup.
What we're doing is just reference.
What does it say?
A real cinematographer.
What is your
It doesn't say anything, it's just the design on the bottom.
Oh.
Made in Brazil.
Oh.
But you know, I mean, teacups, when you think of it, I drink from this teacup, you know, 3-4 times a day, first thing in the morning. I mean, every morning.
Mm-hmm.
So after years and years, this becomes one of your best friends, you know? Yeah. I had one a few years ago that was so close to me. I loved it. I was with it every morning, and it got a crack in it. And I thought, well, I got to throw it out. I can't throw it out. It's my pal, you know? I had to put it in the Henry Diltz Teacup Museum.
That's awesome.
Oh, okay. All right, here we are at photos, precursor photos of Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Because Crosby, Stills, and Nash started with people from the Buffalo Springfield, the Hollies, and the Byrds. So there's the Buffalo Springfield. Those are some of the first rock and roll group shots I ever took in '66 when I first picked up a camera. So there's Stephen and Neil with the Buffalo Springfield. And then below there is the Hollies with Graham Nash sitting there on the left. And I met them in the summer of '66 in New York City. And they were one of the first groups also that I photographed. And then next to them would be the Byrds. That actually was '72. That's the Byrds reunion. And they're sitting in the bar at the Troubadour Club in LA. And so those are the three groups that then, you know, fed into Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And finally, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And so here is Graham on the same day that we took that group shot. We ended up meeting Mama Cass for lunch, and we were sitting out on the back patio, and a spontaneous little romantic moment there. And then, of course, here's the supergroup, Crosby, Stills, Nash. So here they are on the first day that we ever took photos of them, and they're sitting on the back of Gary Burden's back door porch playing. They would always sing spontaneously. They loved their harmony so much that they were always singing, and it was always great to be around them. And so that day we started in Gary Burden's backyard, and then we got into his 1950s Ford station wagon, drove around West Hollywood and found this old couch outside of a little wooden bungalow. And they sat on the couch. I started photographing, and I was kind of up close, just kind of, you know, framing that couch. And then Gary said, back up, get the whole house. I mean, he could see in his mind that he might want to use that whole house for an album cover. So here, this is where I was just, they perfectly fit the frame. That actually looks like the front cover of their album. But then Gary said, back up, and I backed up all the way across the street and got the entire house. And so even though this picture was on the front, the rest of the house wrapped around the back of the album cover. So that was their first album cover, and one of my favorites graphically and musically. And then here is, in the same year, James Taylor. I got a call from Peter Asher one day, said, could you come over to my house today and take pictures of this guy I'm just recording? And I walked in the living room, and that's what I saw. He was sitting on the floor, and he was finger picking "Oh, Susanna." And it sounded just like a music box. I mean, you know, when you hear it, it's on his Sweet Baby James album, but it's got other guitars and other instruments playing. In this moment, he was only finger picking it with the one acoustic guitar, and it just blew my mind. And then we went from there to go outside and took the album cover. Here's Joni Mitchell, my neighbor in Laurel Canyon. We both lived on Lookout Mountain Avenue. And so every day when I would leave my house or drive up to my house, I would drive by her house at the bottom of the hill. So one day we stopped by to take publicity photos, and my graphic artist partner, Gary Burden, was with me, and we walked up to the house, and she was waiting for us in the window. And so Gary started talking to her, and I was talking to her, and we just kept talking for about 15 minutes. And these were my favorite photos, were the ones that I took while we were just kind of waiting to take the real photos. And then here she is. Actually, that photo in the window is 1970. This photo is 1968. And this is the first time I met Joni, was here in Mama Cass's backyard. Mama Cass had been on a TV show with the Mamas and Papas and met this new group of English fellows, Cream, that were just over, first time in the US. And she met Eric Clapton sitting there in the gray shirt with a cigarette. And he was very shy and he didn't know anybody. So Mama Cass said, well, come up to my house. I'll have some friends come over. We'll have a picnic. So she invited David Crosby, sitting in the back there, passing me the joint. Of course, I didn't take it. And then Joni sat there and played her entire first album. They were just in the middle of recording it, so no one had ever heard her or heard of her, really. Eric Clapton is sitting there staring in non-belief because she doesn't play chords. She tunes her guitar to a chord and then just puts her finger over the fretboard. And he'd never seen that before. The great blues guitar player had never seen slack key guitar tuning, and he just staring, he couldn't even believe it. And there's Mama Cass's daughter, Owen, sitting in the front, chewing on one of my Kodak film cans. That was a metal film can that they were great to collect. You could put love beads in them and you could shake them like a you'd use them on recordings. So here's Mama Cass in the desert in Palm Springs, where we went early one morning in a limousine, and we were taking a photo of her for her second album cover. And so we laid this blanket out on the sand, and we'd stopped at a supermarket and gotten some fruit and things. And we took this picture but it never got used on the album cover. It actually was used for a billboard on Sunset Strip. We call this picture Cleopatra. Here's Crosby, Stills, Nash in '69 on that first day when we photographed them. This is a very weird Rolling Stone shot. How many photos of the Rolling Stones have you seen, a group shot where they're not even looking at the camera? And it's funny because I got invited up to this house by a guy who said, "Hey, you want to shoot the Stones? Come up to this house, 4 o'clock. And I went up at 4 o'clock. Well, they were just getting out of bed. And then they got out of bed, and around 5 o'clock, they were eating breakfast. And around 6, 7 o'clock, they finally walked outside. And it was really too dark to shoot photos, you know? And I was there, just me and a camera. And they're thinking, well, where's all the lights? Where's all the assistants? You know, where's the backdrop? I thought this was a photo shoot. And it's just me standing there in the dark with my camera. And then you see Charlie Watts scratching his chin, right? They're thinking, what the heck is this, you know? And so I took a few shots anyway, at like 1/8 of a second. And I thought, well, this isn't going to work at all. And I just left and went home. I never even sent the pictures. But years later, I looked at these dark, dark photos and I said, hey, we can scan those and lighten them. And so we lightened it up a whole bunch, and this is what we got. It's sort of a non-group shot. Here's a weird picture. It's this is taken right outside the Gower Gulch recording studio, the video recording place where the Monkees did their episodes for the Monkees TV show. And they wanted to do a scene of Peter Tork walking across the street carrying this harp. And I mean, I guess they had a policeman there to make sure that the traffic stopped correctly. And so that was kind of a weird moment from '67. I mentioned the Mamas and Papas singing on TV shows. And at that point, I was still in the Modern Folk Quartet. And we did a television show together, some kind of a music show in San Diego. And here's the Mamas and Papas singing. It was the first year I had a camera. I think it was Where the Action Is. And so I took their picture, and then we went on to sing our song. Another picture from '69, it's the Doors out in Venice Beach. We were walking along Venice Beach just taking publicity pictures, and this little boy rode up on a bicycle, and he just stopped and posed. And you know, years later, I put this up on social media, and I said, boy, I wonder where that little boy is. And he wrote to me. He said, that's me. Down below is, that's the same day as we were walking around Venice Beach. And there was that green clothing model was just standing there. You know, that was no prop that we brought or anything. And so we finally incorporated that into the picture. She ended up in the group shot. And then here is that one first day that we photographed Crosby, Stills, and Nash. In fact, this is right around the corner from where that little funny little bungalow was with the couch. There was a little secondhand clothing store, and after we were through at the couch, we walked around the corner and took these pictures outside of the clothing store. Aha, Woodstock. Mm-hmm. This is the band at Woodstock, Robbie Robertson and Levi Helm. I'm sure they were singing "The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down." I mean, you can just see Levi Helm singing that right there. And then here's John Sebastian in the afternoon, standing on the edge of the stage, just one guy with an acoustic guitar serenading 450,000 people, and he was on acid. But he did the greatest job, the most poignant job. You know, I always say he sang to that crowd like it was his best friend. And then years later, when we had the 50th anniversary, I was doing interviews with John, and he described it. He said, yeah, it was like You know how you sit across the coffee table from a friend and share a joint? He said it was just like that, only much huger. And then here it's still, this is Woodstock. Jimi Hendrix on the Monday morning when he came out to close the show, and he played the Star Spangled Banner to everyone's amazement. You know, why was he playing that official song when we all were so against the war and the government and you know, we didn't want to go to Vietnam and kill strangers for what, you know? And then here he plays that official song. And for a moment, it was like, hey, wait a minute, what, you know, which side is he on? And then it was like, whoa, wait, he's reclaiming that song for us. That's our song. That was a wonderful moment right there. Yeah, and then subsequent Woodstocks. I believe this was Woodstock 94. You know, Michael Lang had 3 of them, 69, 94, and 99. And he just missed doing the 50-year anniversary in 2019, but he claims he's still going to do one, and I hope so. This is the Mud People. It always rains at Woodstock, and the people roll in the mud, and then you get the Mud People. John Sebastian, who was in the Lovin' Spoonful, one of the first groups I ever photographed. And a few years later, after they broke up, he moved to LA, and he lived on a little commune called The Farm, which was like an artistic musical commune. And living on the farm was a lady named Tie-Dye Annie. And Tie-Dye Annie taught him how to tie-dye, and he tie-dyed every piece of clothing, his sheets, his pillowcase, and the tent he lived in. And so there he is in his regal tie-dye splendor. Once again on the Monkees set. The Monkees did an episode where they each got to bring one of their favorite musicians on the show, and Mike Nesmith picked Frank Zappa. And so this is that part of the episode with Zappa in it. Okay, this was 1979 on the New Barbarians tour. The New Barbarians were a group that Ron Wood put together to support his solo album. And Keith Richards played guitar on it because they were between Rolling Stone tours. So it was really like a Rolling Stone tour without Mick. So the boss wasn't there. They could do whatever they want. And here's Keith just getting off the plane, and he's looking for his limo. When we land at different cities on the far side of the airport, and about 8 limousines would pull up, and then everybody would walk down the stairs and find their limo. And Richard Fernandez, the road manager, would say, that's yours over there, you're over here. Henry, jump in there with Keith and Ronnie. And that's what's happening right here. Jackson Browne, Late for the Sky. This was an idea for his Late for the Sky album cover, but it never actually got used. And we borrowed this old 55 Chevy from a girlfriend of his, and that's her waiting in the back seat. That wasn't planned. That's her just lying down in the back seat waiting till we're through with her car. And meanwhile, Jackson is there hanging 12, which is a surfer term when you put all 10 toes and 2 fingers over the edge of the board. Here is lovely Dan Fogelberg. What a sweet guy, and what an amazing singer-songwriter he was. I treasure the many moments that we had together. This one in a limousine going somewhere. I went on the road with him quite a few times. I went to his house in Colorado quite often to photograph him. What a guy. He was a gourmet cook and a classical musician and a singer-songwriter and a horseback rider and a skier and a sailboat guy. He was a Renaissance man. There he is. There he is in Colorado early on in an old junk truck out in the middle of a field. One of my favorite songwriters. And I would say among my favorite songwriters would certainly be Jackson Browne. And here he is on the day we did his first album cover. This was in his backyard in a little tool shed. Wow, look at these pictures. I guess they're all kind of cowboy pictures, starting with the Eagles. This was the back of their Desperado album cover. And we copied this after an old Western print showing the outlaws dead in the street and the posse posing proudly with them. The guy on the left with the rifle is my graphic artist partner, Gary Burden. And then you've got a couple of road managers, Larry Penny, and then Richard Fernandez, who became the Eagles road manager and then the New Barbarians road manager. Boyd Elder, an artist from Texas, and Tommy Nixon, who was Glenn Fry's kind of personal assistant. Then you had John Hartman, their manager, and the guy on the end with the white hat is Glyn Johns, the English producer. And there they are, laying dead in the street with, there's Jackson Browne on the left with a mustache that he had for a part of a year. And then you've got Bernie Ledden, and then there's Glenn Fry, and then there's Randy Meisner, and then there is Don Henley, and there is J.D. Souther, songwriting friend of theirs. Boy, they really do look dead, don't they? Mm-hmm. So here is from that day. Here's the two extra Eagles from that day, J.D. Souther and Jackson Browne, who of course co-wrote some of the songs on that album, Desperado. Here is the very lovely Ramblin' Jack Elliott on his horse, Young Brigham. I had met him in New York City in '66 with the Lovin' Spoonful. And some years later, I went out to his ranch in Southern California to do an album cover. And the album was called Young Brigham, which featured him sitting on that horse named Young Brigham and throwing a rope around me. And just as the rope settled around me, I clicked the picture. Mickey Dolenz, all dressed up like a cowboy. This was the day we were filming an episode in the Western Street. And of course, this is behind the scenes, you know, that was Mickey's Volkswagen bus right there. And we're probably just walking back to the set. And here is the set. It was called Hillbilly Honeymoon. And it was done in the old Western set there at the Columbia Ranch in Burbank. They probably filmed so many famous movies. I'm sure you've seen that church steeple in dozens of cowboy movies. So there's Davy Jones being accosted by the locals. Holy cow. Okay, on to, my word. Wow, okay. So here is a picture. Now up in the upper right corner is Young Brigham. And there is Ramblin' Jack Elliott lassoing me with his rope, and I clicked it just as he roped me. And then, you know, going on, there's Sweet Baby James. Below that, there's and over to the left is Arlo Guthrie riding the motorcycle. And you got the Turtles next to that, Turtle Soup, them standing in the soup in Malibu. And Steppenwolf with the star, and there's Morrison Hotel. And just above that, to the right, is Richard Pryor, acting like an Aborigine. A little to the right there, Richard Pryor. That's the back of that album. And next to that is the back of a Richard Pryor album. And then there's the Hollies on the top left. And the Hollies, that was that day in New York City when I took those pictures, and he was with Mama Cass. Back of a Monkees album. Arlo Guthrie again. I did couple of covers of Arlo. And there's Steppenwolf and the back of the Mamas and Papas, and John Stewart, my dear friend John Stewart, who wrote Daydream Believer. And there he is, gosh. Good to see old John. Back of another Monkees album. Below that is Stephen Stills in Colorado, rock climbing. And that was the back of his first solo album, or second solo album, one of it, America, My Good Buddies in America. And there is Sweet Baby James, one of my favorite songs. There's John again with his wife Buffy. And yeah, a lot of great memories there. There's the Crosby, Stills, Nash sitting on the couch. Mamas and Papas again, and Turtles again. I did quite a number of Turtles covers. There's John Stewart again for the back of California Dreamin'. So this is a photograph of my dear friend Renee Faryar. She was married to the sort of the leader of our group. We didn't really have a leader, but the oldest guy, Cyrus, was married to Renee. So she came on the road with us everywhere we went for 5 years. So she was kind of like our kind of den mother. And so here she is wearing some of the Fool's clothing. The Fool was a group of artists in England that made clothing and painted John Lennon's Rolls Royce. And here is Arlo. What was this called? Running on Empty? No, not Running on Empty. I don't remember the name of this album cover, but we photographed him, you know, just leaping over the lip of a hill out in Malibu somewhere on Mike Nesmith's motorcycle, Triumph motorcycle. Joni Mitchell in the desert. This was in the desert, the Red Rocks area outside of Las Vegas. We went out there to take pictures, and here she is kind of in a trance. Oh, wow. And look at that. They go together so well. Here's Mama Cass out in the desert in Palm Springs with her arms up in the air. What a lovely day. What lovely memories for me. Aha. Lovely portraits. Okay. Now these are portraits of 3 of my very favorite songwriters. Of course, James Taylor. That is the big post right there where we took the album cover for Sweet Baby James. And this was at my friend Cyrus's commune called The Farm. There's another one of James that day. Here is Jackson Browne, the first day I met him at his house. We went over to take photos. He said, "You want to hear some songs?" And he sat down at the piano and he played a chord. He went, "Oh, people, look around you." And I went, wow. And he became my favorite songwriter in that moment. And of course, Joni Mitchell, everybody's favorite songwriter. Here we are. That's, I don't know, early 80s. Here's Jackson Browne with looking great. So here is Joni Mitchell sitting at the piano playing, and this was taken on a video, one of the early musical videos. She looks just beautiful. Okay, here is a big blow up of Crosby, Stills, Nash recording their first album. And I believe they are singing Marrakesh Express right here. And you know, as an interesting side, Graham had written all these great songs, including Marrakesh Express, and the Hollies would never record any of them. They didn't think they were good enough. And that caused Graham ultimately to leave the Hollies and start singing with David Crosby and Stephen Stills, because they did appreciate his songs, and they recorded Marrakesh Express right here in Hollywood. Here is an actual proof sheet of that day, and there they are down at the bottom, the 3 of them standing around the mic singing Marrakesh Express. And then other pictures up above are them at the control board. Stephen did a lot of the mixing and production on this album. There's Halverson, the engineer, and here they are. Just, you know, this is them in the control room before they walked out into the studio part and actually recorded. So that shows, you know, kind of what it's like to hang out with these guys in the recording studio. Here's another album cover mural of many, many different shots. Wow, the monkeys It's a little trip down memory lane for me. Here's a bunch of great musicians, starting with Frank Zappa on the left, at a rehearsal with his group, the Mothers of Invention. Below that is Mickey Dolenz. That was on tour with the Monkees, summer of '67. Here's Paul and Linda out in Malibu. And we took this photo, and then Linda said, we want to see these right away because we want to use one for the cover of Life magazine. So I got an accidental Life magazine cover from this photo. Here's my dear friend Ringo, Sir Ringo. We were just taking pictures at rehearsal, and they had all these equipment boxes, and he just kind of ripped that tape off and put it on his forehead. Never a dull moment with Ringo. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. Once again, Dan Fogelberg, one of the greatest. And there he is posing for one of his album covers, Tom Waits. He was writing music for One from the Heart, which was a Coppola movie, and Francis Coppola had stuck him in this little music room with just a grand piano and papers all over the floor. And my friend Stephen Peoples is interviewing him right here. And I came along for the ride. Linda Ronstadt, when she was barely 20 years old, singing with the Stone Ponies. We always used to get together at the Troubadour. You could see Linda there most nights, and she was always barefoot in those days. Now we've got, oh, this is a proof sheet from the Monterey Pop Festival, and it shows the Who breaking up their instruments. You know, no one had seen the Who before this. We'd heard about them, and we knew that they sometimes smashed their instruments, but to stand there on stage and see them smashing, look at that, Pete Townsend smashing his guitar into the amps, and then Keith Moon kicks his entire drum set over onto the stage. And there's all that smoke and pandemonium, and people are going, wait, what? What is going on? That was quite a moment. And here, there he is, smashing his guitar on the floor. Wow. Aha, guitar players and banjo players. Joni Mitchell at the Troubadour playing an early song. Here's my mentor, my great musical hero, Pete Seeger. And he's got his banjo there. I learned to play the 5-string banjo listening to Pete Seeger's record titled How to Play the 5-String Banjo. So I owe it all to Pete. I used to listen to his records and just be hypnotized by that sound. And I just thought, I've got to get a banjo and learn to play it. And so he is my hero. Keith Richards, when he was on tour with Ron Woods, the New Barbarians, and I got to witness many, many great concerts with him playing. Willie Nelson, with that great old beat up guitar. What a guy, what a songwriter, and what a singer. Another hero of mine, Willie Nelson. Merle Haggard. You know, some of these photos are of people that I've spent countless days and weeks and years with. Merle Haggard, I saw once on a TV show, and I took these photos while he played. A great singer-songwriter, but I really didn't know him. Wow, another mural of album covers. It's just so great to see all these. I didn't know I took so many. That is a picture of Kurt Cobain on one of his last concerts with Nirvana, where he played the LA Forum in LA, and I think he died later that year. These are two photos from Bangladesh, which was, of course, George Harrison's charity concert for the people of Bangladesh ravaged by the floods. And Bob Dylan came out to sing, and I was standing in the wings and just got those pictures, my favorite pictures from there. Aha, well, the Doors and the Eagles, both taken in '69. Here's the Doors. We were walking around Venice Beach and we found that wall with the graffiti on it. And then we were in a little bar on Skid Row, which was called Hard Rock Cafe. And we took these pictures in the bar in late '69. And this, yeah. And then here they are in the Hard Rock Cafe, right inside the front door, sitting there on the bar stools, having a beer. And then here are the Eagles on their first album cover. We went out to Joshua Tree and we spent the day and a night up on top of a mountain eating peyote buttons and laughing. You could see everybody in a good mood. That coffee pot on the fire has got peyote tea bubbling in it. So we had quite a lark out there on top of a desert mountain. Oh, this is a weird shot of Steppenwolf. This was a house that I believe Canned Heat might have lived in, but it burned down, and it was right next to Joni Mitchell's house up on Lookout Mountain Avenue in Laurel Canyon. And so we took this picture of Steppenwolf in there one day for an album cover. It's actually on an album cover. Neil Young, I used to go up to Neil Young's ranch once in a while and spend the night, and we'd walk around in the morning smoking a joint and taking pictures. Here he is offering a joint to his little puppy. His dog's name was Hart, named H-A-R-T-E, named after Bret Hart, the turn of the century American short story writer of the Old West. And below that is Crosby with a joint and a flag gun. He was just sitting in bed, talking on the phone, smoking a joint, and Graham opened the door and said, "Hey, Cros, a fan made you this." And he threw that little flag pillow gun on the bed. And I'm just sitting there, and he picked it up, and I went click, and we got this picture. Once again, Neil Young's ranch, walk around the ranch. There he is with a little wheat straw roach in his fingers. And here is Steppenwolf again in that old burned out house. Richard Pryor. Yeah, Richard Pryor did a solo album, and he was managed by the same manager, Bobby Roberts, who managed the Mamas and Papas. And so he called Gary and I one day, Gary Burden and I, and said, "Would you do an album cover for Richard Pryor?" So this was one of the ideas that we used. It wasn't the cover, but what a great time. What a funny guy. Here we are in the Doors Volkswagen van driving out to Venice to take publicity pictures on the beach. And it was kind of a long drive, and Jim was sitting right behind me. I was riding shotgun. The drummer was driving. And I always carried a Time magazine in my back pocket. You could see he's reading one there. And I always carried in my back pocket to read when there was nothing happening. And I was just about, I pulled it out to read it. And Jim said, "Hey, let me see your magazine." And I handed him the magazine, and I thought, well, what the heck, now I can't read it. And I turned around to take his picture. Look at that look, right? He said, what do you want? I want my Time magazine back. That's what I want. This is on the plane, like the Rolling Stones, on those great big airplanes with bars and couches and bedrooms. This was one for the New Barbarians, which was like the Rolling Stones without Mick. And there is Keith, of course, doing what he does. Folks, every single musician in every one of these pictures smoked God's herb. I hate to tell you, but I love to tell you. That's why we had all this great music. So there is Stephen Stills in Amsterdam. We went to see Chip Monk, the road manager, who was on the road with the Rolling Stones. Stephen wanted to ask him to produce one of his concerts. And so we were back in the dressing rooms, and when the Stones started playing to the crowd in Amsterdam, we went up on stage, and we were standing in the wings, and there was a big piano there, and Mick just motioned to Stephen, said, "Sit down, play for a song." And so that's right where I was standing watching the concert, and Stephen sat in on one song. What a great place to be right there. This is the New Barbarians. You see Ron Wood on the right there in the gray shirt, and there's Keith next to him in the blue shirt. Stanley Clark in the white shirt, who's their jazz bass player. Ian McLagan down there under the right, one arm of Stanley Clark, and on the other arm is Bobby Keys, the saxophone player with the Rolling Stones and this group. And then Ziggy, then the guy on the left is a reggae drummer, Ziggy. Here is the actual shoot we did of Richard Pryor's album cover, where he wanted to do something rootsy. So we got some Aborigine weapons and jewelry, and he knew where this little cave was up in Beverly Hills in a vacant lot. And we went up there and he pretended he was like an Aborigine native. And we took photos, and one of them became the cover of his first comedy album. Here's a very early picture of James Taylor, which really predates Sweet Baby James by a couple of years. I even forgot how I happened to take this, but I spent an afternoon on the beach down in San Diego with him. Here is Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young, Taylor, and Reeves. So that's Dallas Taylor way in the back on the right, the drummer, and Greg Reeves, the young fella sitting in the foreground. They had lost their drummer and they needed a drummer, so they found this young kid at Motown. And he said he was 18 years old and he could go on the road with them legally. But actually, he lied to them. He was really 16 years old. And they never found out till years later. But he told me that some years later. Of course, you know, when you photograph all these people enough, you get a few fingers thrust at you. And actually, most of them are David Crosby. And then here he is with Rob Lowe. I believe this is his maybe 75th birthday party or something like that up in Santa Ynez Valley. Now, this is that day that Frank Zappa played on the Monkees episode, and they've got Mike Nesmith dressed up as Frank Zappa, and they've got Frank Zappa dressed up as Mike Nesmith. And so Mike is sitting there with the long hair, and one of the light men said, "Give us a kiss, honey," which you always heard in the 60s when you grew your hair long. And he just flashed a quick finger. But I was looking through the lens the whole time, and I just happened to grab it. It was only a split second. Aha. I love it. I love it when there's the hidden finger somewhere. It's called the one finger salute. And so here's Jackson Browne sitting in that old 55 Chevy when we were working on his album cover, giving me the one finger salute. Hooray. David Cassidy. Of course, I went around the world with David Cassidy in sort of 73, 74. And here he is in the limo, flanked by his road managers. And then the guy with the puka shells is Billy Francis, who was his sort of valet and security guy. And he's wearing a puka shell necklace that my wife Elizabeth made over on the North Shore of Hawaii, the North Shore of Oahu. The Monkees, of course. This was actually a Kool-Aid commercial out in the desert. And look, it really was hot and, you know, very hot out there. And I'm bugging them for yet another picture. And Mickey is telling me how he feels about that. This is the Lovin' Spoonful, but it's the Lovin' Spoonful after the lead guitarist Zal Yanofsky left, and my pal Jerry Yester with the red hair joined as the new lead guitar player. And Jerry Yester had sung in the MSQ with me for 5 years. And so there he is, the new guy in the group. And of course, Steve Boone was always giving me the finger. And sure enough, true to form, They never wanted me to get a group shot, even though I was working for them. They always would goof it up by doing something, you know, untoward. And now we get the 2-finger salute, much better. This is Cher on a, gosh, it was a music video, a Sonny and Cher music video. And she was flashing the peace sign to somebody. But when I work on these sets like this, I'm often just have the camera up to my eye the whole time. Because when you see something like that, it happens very quickly. And if you don't have the camera already looking, you won't get it. There's no time to raise the camera and focus. So I was happy to get that. She looks so beautiful there. Yeah. And here, this is my traditional The End slideshow picture. Whenever I do a slideshow, this is always the last one. And it happens to be my pal, David Cassidy, on the beach in New Zealand. I love that picture. These are pictures of Paul McCartney playing his bass when he was with the group Wings. We're photographing them while they recorded London Town on these boats that were floating on Watermelon Bay in the US Virgin Islands. And here he is up on deck playing his bass. And on the other side, we have Neil Young, who was on stage in Balboa Stadium in San Diego, tuning his guitar before the concert. And there he is, kind of tuning his guitar, getting it all tuned up. There he is talking to a road manager about something. There were no dressing rooms, so he was on stage doing that. And here is the day in '71 when I photographed Paul and Linda, and that's an early selfie of me. And then the 2 little girls in the back there, Heather and Stella, on the slide. This picture was taken in 1967 in the dressing room on stage at the Hollywood Bowl. And the Mamas and Papas were headlining, and it was right after Monterey Pop, and they asked Jimi Hendrix if he would open the show for them. So here they are, Jimi Hendrix and Michelle and Cass sitting on the couch, telling secrets to each other. And here we are on an early Eagles tour in a little 2-engine prop airplane. And of course, like I said, everybody smoked God's herb because it kind of made things better. And so there we are, sharing a little hit. I'm sitting right across from, Glenn Fry. And we're just having a little pick-me-up toke. Those were great days. Mm-hmm. Everybody was, you know, kind of very artistic and really happening. We all were like having a little toke now and then, which was great. And everybody was in a good mood. And I get to push the button and take the picture. You know, those are all things that I don't claim I made those pictures or anything. I don't even claim them. I mean, I was there, yes. I pushed the button and I captured those moments. But each one of those moments, there were hours around them. And so I would always wait until people were feeling good or looking good. I didn't want any ugly pictures, you know. Mm-hmm. I didn't want any people fighting. I mean, and most of the time I wasn't hired to take a lot of those pictures. I was just hanging out with my friends. And then they became album covers and they became used later. But it was just a regular day, you know, just, yeah. Oh, wait, you know what? And let me take this picture. I never thought of it if I have my camera.
Oh, here, I'll take this off.
Okay. Larry, get in there.
Come on, Larry.
All right, yeah. Yeah, do that, Larry. Okay. Yeah, wait, do that one. Peace sign. Both of you, do the peace sign. Larry, okay. Ah, good, okay. Thanks, you guys. What fun.
Henry, thank you so much for walking through the exhibit with us.
Yes, what a hoot it was for me.
And you know, what other way to wrap up a discussion with you than to have you take photos of us as we're wrapping things up? That was so amazing. Thank you for doing that. So we wanted to make sure that we gave everybody who was calling in the opportunity to ask you a question if they had one. And everybody's muted right now just to hold down background noise. So if anybody would like to ask a question, we can put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to start pelting Henry with questions, and you may not want to hear these answers that he's going to give me because Henry will tell me the truth at all times.
That's right.
And then we have some guests who are going to jump on and chat with Henry in just a few moments as well.
Right around 6 or a few minutes after, yeah.
Right around 6. So
Well, 6, we're in different places, aren't we? Yes.
We are. We're all
All relative.
We're all over the place.
Is our audio on? Is our audio on?
Your
Is
audio
audio
is on
on?
now. Yeah.
Hey, Henry, it's Coco.
Hey, Coco, it's Mickey's sister, Coco.
Woo!
Hi, how are you?
I am fine, sir. Gary sent me the link and I had to jump in and remember all those wonderful pictures and wonderful you, and just wanted to say hi and stay cool this weekend.
Well, stay on because your brother's going to be on in about 10 minutes.
Ah, sweet. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great,
Okay.
Coco. Glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
I did want to share the fact that we've got a projector that's showing some excerpts from your journals, which are incredible. In the photos, you all saw some little snippets of those, but we have a projector, and Larry's actually going to go on screen and show you that. If you guys see Larry White and his name, he should be showing you the projection of the journals. They're just so insightful, and they express so much about what's going on, not just the photography, but your Zen spirituality, which is delightful. Oh, and I saw that there was a question about how long the exhibit would be here. It'll be here till January 10th. So it's got a run that will allow us to get a little bit more folks in here with social distancing and limiting attendance in a respectful and responsible way, while still sharing this exhibit with as many people as we can.
I see a couple questions.
Open right now, Ed. It is open today. We reopened for time-ticketed admission today, so there were folks in here looking at the exhibit, and we actually had Henry send us some items. So we've also added a display case in addition to the projector. So there are some treats that weren't in the video of all the photos. And it is, you want to spend some time in here and really take a look at all of the artistry. And I know, Henry, you talk about the fact that none of these photos were necessary, or most of them weren't planned. You just happened to be there. You happened to be in the right place in the right time so many times.
A lot of well, you know, I was a musician to begin with, and so virtually all of my friends were musicians. And when I picked up a camera as a hobby and started just photographing everything, they all needed pictures. So gradually that happened. I mean, if it was an album cover, we'd have a plan. It would usually be an adventure, you know, go to the desert with the Eagles, or go to an Indian reservation with America, or, you know, go somewhere and have an adventure. And so we did that a lot, but otherwise I'd just be hanging out at somebody's house taking photos, and sometimes those would become album covers. Kind of, you know, we had a question a minute ago from Cindy Yates, who said, how long will the exhibit be up?
Yep. January 10th is the last day. So it's
January 10th.
open
Okay.
now. So it's got several months for people to be able to come and enjoy it. And we'll do our best, you know, as we need to share it digitally as well. So, but hopefully folks can come in. And then we did have another question about what cameras you use.
Aha. Good question. Well, for most of my life, I used a Nikon, just a Nikon F or a Nikon FM, which meant manual. When I really started, I bought a little junk camera in a secondhand store. It was a Japanese camera, and it was kind of broken, but I used that for the very first, you know, sort of few months. And then I got Pentaxes, and I had Pentax cameras, but then somebody stole my whole camera bag out of the back of my Volkswagen when I was in at the cleaners in Hollywood one day. So a friend of mine loaned me his Nikon body. And I thought, wow, it's like a tank, you know. I was always breaking my Pentaxes. I mean, the thumb advance would break, something would break, but the Nikons were like tanks. So gradually I bought lenses, and I used Nikons up until 2005, when, as I said in 2005, I will never go digital. I am a film guy, you know. And I picked up my friend's Canon, and I looked through it. I said, wow, this focuses itself. It sets its own light meter, you know, its own light reading. I thought, this is magic. And then I bought Canons. And so for the past 15 years, I've been shooting Canon digital.
Henry, we have one of your friends is calling in. So we're going to have Jerry join us. Would you like to introduce Jerry?
Yes, my pal Jerry.
Hey.
Jerry Beckley. I got the last name wrong. Hey, Jerry, can we see Jerry?
Can you guys see me?
Our tech guy's name. There he is, straight from Australia, right?
I thought this was a David Crosby fan club meeting. What am I joining here?
So it's what, 11:30 in the morning over there where you are right now?
Not only that, it's the future, and I can
It's
report
tomorrow.
to you all that Saturday does arrive, because we're in the middle of Saturday.
Maybe you can give us some stock tips.
Market's closed on the weekends, Henry.
Oh,
oh shoot, we should have
Yeah.
done this on a weekday. Yeah, because that works well.
yeah. Well, Jerry, we just saw some photos of you. Maybe we can flash a couple up on the wall. Our tech guy's name is Jerry, and also Larry
Yeah.
White. Are we going to see a couple of America shots that we can?
Yeah, can you go over there? Larry's going to go over, and David is in as well. So we may want to let
Easy.
be in. Yeah.
Can we get a look at him?
Me.
Yeah.
Hello.
That's up. Yep. There he is.
Let's go.
I can't see him, but anyway. Oh, there goes Larry running. Hello. I just told David that we saw a picture of him giving me the finger with Rob Lowe. Yeah. I don't see him or hear him yet, but
Me either.
I
Oh, I
trust
see him. Yeah. If you scroll over, you should see David. He's sitting there. He's got on a red shirt.
Oh, okay, wait.
Surprise.
There he is. Hey, how are you, David? Peace. It's very good. I think we're gonna show, oh, there's the America photo. Are we gonna flash that on the screen?
Jerry, Larry, if you speak, you may be able to.
I mean, it's up there on Larry White's iPhone, but it should be,
I see. I can see the picture.
that was the day we went out to the Indian reservation
Mhm.
with that mirror.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
A bunch of leftover peyote buttons from the Eagles photo session. Yeah.
Was that a good idea as well, or?
Oh gosh, yeah. It was great. It makes it for a good adventure, you know. Do we got a Crosby shot there, Larry? Are you running to?
What are we looking for?
Crosby?
Hey, Dave.
I thought
He has all those
your
roads.
tech guy was going to put pictures up that we could look at.
Yeah, I think we're having a little technical issue.
Okay. Well, there we
And
go.
this new digital age that we're living in.
There's
Just
Jerry in
what
the
Crosby
middle.
is America covers.
Another America cover. There were a few of those. Yeah, the back of Hideaway. Yeah, live. Aha, Alibi, America cover in the desert. Yeah. There's David and the boys on the old couch, showing a little bit of the back of the wraparound, the back of the house. Yeah. What else you got, Jerry? Talk about not you, Jerry Beckley, but the other Jerry. Another angle sitting on the old house, which was gone 3 days later when we went back to retake the photos, and the house was gone.
Mhm.
You probably could have bought that house for what, 30 grand or something. That would have been nice. Could be a little coffee house now. This is in Minneapolis, just before they walked out on stage. Just tuning up. The back door of Gary Burden's house. When we took, this is the day we started out here, and then we drove around in Gary's old Ford station wagon and found that old house. But here's where we were starting that day. Oh yeah, this is the Wally Hyder's proof sheet, David. We saw this before on the tour. And there you guys are on the bottom singing Marrakesh Express. Remember? Is David there? He might have gone to eat his dinner.
He's there.
Is he? Okay, hey everybody. Well, how nice that we all could meet like this. Hey, yeah, Jerry as usual, laying on his bed.
Hey, look, here's where I actually am. I'm in my studio.
Oh,
Guitars and shit.
you're in the studio in Sydney tomorrow.
Yeah, I am in the future.
Yes, that's
Well,
right.
sounding-
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Well-
Now, is Mickey on? I saw a Dolan.
I'll give him a call.
Yeah.
a call. His sister is on, but let me
Okay.
call him.
Ah, there he is.
Mickey.
Where is he?
The
Hey,
shady
there he is with the hat.
There we
Hey,
go. Hello?
Wow. Hey there, Mickey. Your sister is on here too. We said hello to her. a few
Really?
minutes. Yeah.
How cool. Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
All right.
Guys, we just looked at an amazing array of Henry's photos, and of course, you guys are subjects in so many of them. What's it like being on the other side of the lens whenever Henry's got a camera pointed at you? While is that the most comfortable or photography setting, or what was the experience like to have him as your photographer?
Mickey.
Well, I just keep wanting to get my cut. No, I tell you, it was interesting in my case, when we were filming on the television show, there was a lot of old school photographers that were coming around, because back then that was all there was, and they would hire some photographer, the press department at Screen Gems Columbia, at Screen Gems Television, and it would usually be an elderly person that had been photographer since the 40s or 50s, and they'd come around and in a suit with a big massive camera that was very slow, and they'd set up a big lighting rig. And then I really specifically remember these old dudes would say, "Okay, guys, be funny." And that's when we would all just walk off the set. We're just like, oh, Jesus, because we'd been groomed to not do that kind of thing. It was very spontaneous and improvisational. And so they could never get really good photos of us because we were just bored. And, you know, these guys would say, okay, now Mickey, you put your hand up here and stick your finger in David's ear. And it's like, F you, you know, we just don't do that. And then one day, this long-haired weirdo came around named Henry Diltz. And I don't even remember the first day or when I met you, Henry. You'd probably remember, but I don't. All I remember is you came around and you just kind of were hanging out. And you were a musician, of course, and you know, sing and play and stuff. And you just sort of melded into the moment, like which I say was very improvisational and very spontaneous at the time, which was very unusual for a television show, a network television show. One of the things I think that endeared it to so many people. But they trained us, you know, with a guy named James Frawley, very, very famous director, had just passed away a few years ago. He was in improv in Chicago with Mike Nichols and Elaine May, and they brought him into the mix and taught us improv very early on, before we even started filming. And that, you know, and so the short story is that Henry came in and also was of our ilk and our generation, and also spontaneous and improvisational, and did not say, okay, stand here, guys, and stick your finger in David's ear. And we just hit it off, and we basically, as a unit, you know, told the producers, Bob Rapelson and Bert Schneider and whoever, Henry's the only one that's allowed to take photos of us. Everybody else can go to hell. We're not interested in, and to this day, that's more or less the truth. Well, I'm sorry to ramble on. I know David wants to go have dinner, and I had a prostate examination, which I'm late for.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
I get them regularly.
Yeah, I never had one.
We may be getting into the area of too much information, but thank you for sharing. Okay, and David, we have a question for you. By the way, big fan. Let's see. We've heard from Henry about the famous album cover photo. What's your memory about that? The album cover, the couch photo. What memory do you have of that?
You know that story already. I don't remember much about the day because we were all stoned out of our gourds. I think the only significant story was that one about the house being sold, and it was a pretty good story. I think Henry's gotten a lot of mileage out of that one.
You know, one of my favorite photos in this exhibit is the photo of you and Joni at Cass's at a picnic with Owen in the foreground and Eric Clapton. You know, what memories do you have of that? I mean, I know you were smoking and everything, but what memories do you have of that picnic and taking Joni there and sharing her with the world?
I did that a lot, and that happened a lot. We used to, that was kind of like a normal afternoon in the summertime up at Cass's. We would visit each other at our houses rather than go down to some public place. And hers was the best, and she was the most welcoming. And you know, that happened quite a bit. That was the one time that we let anybody take any pictures of it. Which is good, because Clapton wasn't there very often. But I think it's great that we got a great picture of Owen sitting there in the foreground.
Yeah. I always say that Eric Clapton was amazed to see her playing in a tuning. You know, the great blues guitar player, he'd never seen anybody play slack key tuning and just lay their finger over the fretboard. That's why he was staring at her.
Yeah, there was some of that. I think he had seen people playing open tunings before, dude, because he knew about lap steel players. But here's the thing, he was baffled, as was I, as was every single musician that I ever saw encounter Joni. He was baffled by the musicianship and by the depth of the conception as a composer, as a writer. She was startling, and there wasn't anybody else like her. And yeah. I'm sure that he was paying full 100% attention right at that second.
He was mesmerized. He never took his eyes off her for like, a half hour, 40 minutes. She played the whole album, right? The whole first album, pretty much, as I remember.
He loved it. He told me later that he loved it.
Yeah, I love that picture. By golly, huh?
Yeah.
David, we have one more question for you, and then we'll be nice and let you go eat your dinner, or have a prostate exam, whatever.
No. You have to take me out to dinner to be able to.
Okay. I had the order all wrong. Okay.
But I always tell the doctor, you want to do that, you got to take me out to dinner first.
Of course. Okay, so the question is, have you noticed different results over the years between photographers that you know personally, like Henry, and those you don't really know at all?
Sure. The big difference with Henry is that Henry is very deft at being your friend. He is my friend. He's been my friend for a very long time, and I'm comfortable with him. That's how most of us feel about him. He's a goofy, wonderful guy, but he's also a good musician and a good singer. I watched him on stage with great admiration many a time. So he has stature in my head as one of my fellow people. But he's very deft, even with total strangers or even with people that don't know him as a musician. He's very deft at catching what's going on in the room and where the energy is and who's comfortable, who's not guarded right at that second. All of those things are real gifts, I hope you're recording this because it's the last nice stuff I'm saying about it.
That's great, David.
Yeah, and I think all of us would have to agree. I mean, I don't think any of us who know Henry and have heard people talk about Henry, nobody says, "Oh, that Henry Diltz, he's just an asshole." He's just a good guy.
I do.
No, wait a minute.
Oh, do you? Okay, never mind.
I do have two or three people that will say that, but we won't bring that up right now. I mean,
we're not inviting them to the party.
Oh my God.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
gonna go have dinner.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David. I mean, that's the nicest thing I ever heard. Usually I just get the finger, But,
well, here you see.
There you go. All right.
Bye, Dave.
Take care of
Okay,
yourself.
thanks, David. Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Adios, amigos.
That is cool. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, and so we'll go back to Jerry now because we've got started talking with Jerry and got away from him. So we'll go back to Jerry and talk about America and his working with you as a photographer. Jerry, what do you have to say?
Our first shoots with Henry were actually album cover shoots, and so they had kind of a purpose, and it included Gary, Gary Burden, his partner of many years, and we took a drive up a lovely drive. We just loaded up in, I think Gary had a vintage station wagon, and we went up the old coast road up through Big Sur up to San Francisco. And it just involved a lot of peyote, as I remember. And we were very young, and we just thought, you know, there's these two, not gnarly, but a little bit older dudes. And we thought, this is far out. And we knew the names from the other album covers. And so then the peyote came out, and we thought, well, I guess that's what you do. But it certainly added a whole nother dimension to the trip. And we got lovely photos. And more importantly, we started a lovely friendship that is, as you now know, has been going on almost 50 years.
Mm-hmm. How time flies, huh? When you're having fun.
I do have memories of certain things. I always remember that, you know, because you want to make, although very often the shoots would be kind of, let's just see what we get. And of course, back in the days of film, you didn't know what you got. And so you had this gathering a few days later, or maybe even a week later, to kind of see if you caught the magic and stuff. And there'd be a, you know, an evening slideshow. It was a really fantastic process. But I do remember kind of an ongoing thing with Henry where he would always want me to look at the camera, look this way, Jer. He's always saying, because I was like gazing off somewhere else, and he's trying to capture, because from his experience, he knew that the money shot was very often the one with the eye contact and stuff. So I did get it and stuff, but there was, I do seem to remember a lot of Jerry, over here this way.
It was our thing. You would never look. And yet when I see any other pictures of you and your group that other photographers took, you're always looking right at the camera, right?
Because I just figured that's the quickest way to get it over with. I know that.
That's true. There is that. Sure. Oh,
yeah, but we are still doing shoots. We still, Henry and I, we still, if I wasn't down here, I guarantee we would be getting together or going to the Coffee Bean or something. And yeah, it's just fantastic.
Well, Jerry, when I met you, you weren't taking pictures at all. And now you're a very accomplished photographer. I mean, folks, Jerry sends me pictures almost every day that he takes. I mean, it's in Australia or on the road, right? You had that thing where every hotel room, you had that thing.
When the internet started, and I used to be a postcard guy, and Henry was too, and we'd send postcards to our friends. And when the internet started, I realized you could send a digital picture. So for somebody like me, a husband and a father and stuff, who was gone at least 200 days a year, it was this, fantastic. So I actually did, for 20 years, I took a shot out of my hotel window, and I had some self-imposed rules. I was allowed a little panning and a little zoom for composition. But other than that, it had to be exactly what I saw out the window. And that's all I sent. And I'd send it's called View from the Hotel Window. And it was a lot of dumpsters and a lot of alleys and stuff. But I realized that if it was a matter of what's the best view, I would have been changing rooms all day in the hotel. So it had to be whatever the room I was assigned. And so that went on for 20 years until I got a bit bored with it. And then I thought, you know what, I ought to roam around and take a few more pictures. So yeah, I got into it.
Yeah, you're well into it. Yeah, it's great, Jerry.
That's
Very
amazing.
cool.
We'll go back. We'll toggle back to Mickey real quickly and ask a couple of questions, or ask at least one or two more questions about. Yeah, I mean the monkeys shoots. Of course, you see all the playfulness, and you can see the humor in the photos. And we all, I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but I remember the monkeys and from younger days, and how the humor was always present. How do you think Henry was able to capture that so well in the photographs that he took of you guys?
Well, I think Jerry actually hit the nail on the head. He became a friend. And as a friend, and I mean like a real good friend, we spent probably more time off the set than we did, at least like only speaking for myself, more time off the set than we did on. I'd be up at his house, he'd be at my house, you know, constantly. And so when you have a really good friend around you, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, they become invisible because they're your best friend. It's like your family. when your family's around, you let down your guard, and you're not self-conscious. And I would say that was the main thing that Henry brought to the party was, and it wasn't obviously contrived. I mean, he wasn't like, well, now I'm going to go make friends with these guys so I can get good pictures. It was the other way around. He got good pictures because he became a friend. And so you just were not guarded. You weren't intimidated or, and that's the only way I can describe it. It's just that he was just around and like family and friends. And so that was very, very valuable. And Henry, I just want to congratulate you on the show, on all your shows and all your photographs and everything else. It's been, really been a great. Do you remember when we first met?
On the set, I believe, early one morning. And we used to climb up the ladder to the catwalk, remember? Smoke a joint. Look down at all the little people.
No, not me. No, it was two joints. Not one, Henry. But it would have been 67, you think?
Oh, yeah, 67. Yep.
So how many years is that? How many years ago is that? 67.
Well, more than 50.
53.
53 years.
53.
Wow. That's about how old I am.
Henry. I love you to death. I got to go. Congratulations on the show.
Thanks, Mickey.
Bye, Mickey.
Enjoy your prostate exam, Mickey.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mickey.
You got it.
Okay.
Hey,
well,
you guys,
folks-
I'm going to sign off too, if it's okay. We're going to go for our daily swim. It is
It's almost
the second
lunchtime
day.
for you.
Well, it's the 5th day of spring, and so we're out of winter, and we go every morning to Bronte Beach. So I'll bid my love to you all, and especially Henry. Congratulations on the show. It looks really lovely. I wish we could be there in person. Although I guarantee, I think I've seen all these photos. So. Yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you all for your time. It's great to see you.
Stay safe,
all.
Jerry. Love to you, man.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you, Jerry.
Bye.
Okay, folks, we're going to wrap things up and let Henry have the rest of his evening. And with our appreciation, deep appreciation for you sharing your amazing artistry and your absolutely zen vibe in this space. What better place to have this kind of an exhibit than the Woody Guthrie Center? I mean,
Indeed. Yes.
it's
Indeed.
perfect. We need this right now. We need this sense of community and love that you see in all of these photographs. And thank you so much for letting us do this with you.
Thank you, Dina.
An honor.
And I hope to get down there in person, maybe in November, December, something like that.
We would love that. Please come as soon as it's safe to do so. We would love to have you here. You all have a really wonderful night. Thank you so much for joining us. And please come and see us as soon as you can, as soon as it's safe. We look forward to seeing you again.
And thanks everybody who tuned in, and thank you, Larry. Thank you. Hey, Larry. Thanks, Jerry, for doing all the technical stuff. Hey, Kevin.
Well done.
Goodbye, everybody.
Hey, Jerry.
Bye, Bill.
Bye, Bill.
Bye, Cindy.
Bye, Cindy.
Bye, Douglas. See you. Bye, everybody. Bye, Coco. Bye, Carol. Okay, bye.
This land was made for you and me. As I went a walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway, saw below